Joining me now, Washington Post opinion columnist Catherine Rampell, whose latest column argues the only way to save the Republican Party is to, quote, drain the right-wing media swamp. Give me the argument of your column.
My fear is that after this election is over and Trump gets the trouncing that everybody seems to expect that he will get, the Republican Party will regroup and say, what did we do wrong? What's our autopsy this time around? If they're going to lay it at the feet of Donald Trump and say, you know, if we had only had a candidate with maybe the same package of policies, but like a little more empathic gloss, a little less boorish, a little less bigoted, hadn't been caught on tape saying he was going to grope women, etc., we would be okay. And I think this is wrong. The problem with the party right now is not Donald Trump, or at least not only Donald Trump. The problem is that a large share of their base believes completely bonkers, bigoted things. And they have been fed this again and again over years by the right wing.
What do you mean by bonkers, bigoted things?
Birtherism, data trutherism, widespread voter fraud.
Explain those. Data trutherism was that like there's large significant parts of Fox viewers and conservatives and Republicans who think that like all the economic data is being essentially juiced and made up by the federal government.
Yes, the polls are skewed. Even the Fox News polls are skewed these days, according to the Republican base. Beyond that, you know, that the weather numbers that we get are wrong. You know, that Matt Drudge had recently said that nobody should evacuate their homes when a hurricane was coming.
It was a liberal media conspiracy.
Right, it was a conspiracy. The numbers were made up. The projections were made up specifically to gin up fear about global warming.
And so the idea here, I mean, I think the idea is that there's a sort of contextual environment in which Trump has flourished, and the environment is the more important thing than Trump in some ways, because the environment is the environment that is so self-contained and untethered from connections to external reality that you can have a candidate like him flourish.
Basically the alt-right for years has created an alternate reality that has inevitably led to Trump. And for years, the Republican...
You mean the right?
The alt-right.
You mean specifically the alt-right?
Well, and the alt-right and the right.
Right. I mean, I think it's bigger than what I guess I would say that the sort of self-identified white nationalists of the alt-right. It's larger than that.
But I don't mean to paint all conservative-leaning journalists with the same brush. What I mean is those who are peddling crazy conspiracy theories, saying that Obama was not born in the United States, that sort of thing.
I mean, that's part of the issue, right? Because there are tons of conservative journalists and writers and folks, you know, at Fox and other places. There are places that people that have integrity, that they're opinionated with an ideological axe to grind, but who doesn't have one? And you can read, you know, Phil Klein, who I always talk about, is a great. He's been reporting on Obamacare. Conservative, doesn't like Obamacare, is embedded in the facts of what Obamacare is. There's knowledge, there's subject matter knowledge, there's expertise, there's all these things. That's a very small group of these folks with a very small
and my concern
audience.
Is that Republican leadership has been playing along for years with these conspiracy theorists.
They're controlled by them. It's not even played along. They're terrified of them. I mean, look what happened to Eric Cantor in his primary race with David Bratt when basically right-wing radio decided to take him on.
I think there are two issues going on here, why they haven't been willing to take on the crazies, essentially. One is that they desperately need the imprimatur of these places, you know, because they're influential, Hannity's influential, Rush Limbaugh's influential, Drudge, whoever else. If they tick them off, they will potentially lose those voters. The second is, to some extent, these conspiracy theories have served their interests in the short term. So, you know, birtherism, to take one example, delegitimizing the popular mandate of the president, who happens to be the first black president. Maybe that was useful to their cause in the near term, but of course, in the long run, it, you know, stoked a lot of racial resentment. The same kind of thing with claims of voter fraud. In the near term,
it has been extremely useful.
Extremely well, until a bunch of courts.
Right, but it's been the pretext by which they've passed actual pieces of legislation that have actually made it harder for actual populations that actually vote for Democrats in large numbers to vote.
Yes, and in the long run, it set the stage for a presidential candidate to claim to his many voters that the election will be stolen from him. And today, you know, a large share of Americans, Republicans in particular, believe that election will be stolen from them.
I think that it's absolutely the case that and you're seeing it sort of in its sort of death throes now, as it was with famously Karl Rove on election night in 2012, saying it's not over, it's not over. But then they all just went back to the script. And the big question for the right, I think, after this, about particularly conservative media, is do they go back to the script, or is there some sort of reckoning? Catherine Rampell, thanks for being with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still ahead, the